a different name, go ahead and pipe up and let me know.
Let us know you're here.
You're on your laptop from your kids or something. We all ready to go?
I think we're ready.
All right. Welcome to Builder Chat, everybody. We're excited to see everybody. We have so many faces here. It's pretty incredible gathering. And this one is going to be a little bit different today. We have a lot of special guests that we're going to spend a little bit of time with. And Janessa, if you could just watch the waiting room for us. We have a lot going on, so I appreciate your support there. So Builder Chat, oh, I see Tony. Hi, Tony. Good to see you. Builder Chat, the purpose of it is to bring folks together and have discussions that are super relevant and helpful to construction topics. We have a super thoughtful and well-educated collection of folks here today that represent some of the best construction companies that the Seattle area and Washington, and we even have someone from California, some of the best companies that exist. And I'm really happy that we have everybody here today. We have a lot of information that we're going to be going through. So I'm sure that everybody here is a Zoom expert by now. We've had months and months and months to get through this. So by a show of how much expertise we have, if I could have everybody find the participants window and click the yes button, that would be super awesome. Let's go. Let's see how fast we could do this.
We got students in here. Look at that. They're gonna make all of the older folks have to stay on their toes, right?
There you go. Perfect. Pretty good showing. So in the case that anybody has questions, comments, thoughts as we're going through this session, please go ahead and click that yes button or hand up button or thumbs up button, and we will make a point of calling on everybody. We have a lot of content to get through here today, but first I want to introduce Mark Zimfer. So Mark, if you would just say a little bit about who you are, what you do for Purdue. And I think even before we get to that, some folks are wondering, what is the significance of Purdue? Well, Purdue is the alma mater for Mary and myself. It's the school that we went to, and we have a lot of respect for their construction program specifically. And it got us all the way out here to Seattle several years ago. So Mark, would you introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about the class that we have today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason and Mary. My name is Mark Zimfer. I'm an assistant professor of practice in the School of Construction Management at Purdue University. That's a really long title, which just means I'm an industry person that's come back to teach. So I've run my family's company, and then now it's my own construction company for the last 22 years. Love construction and love to teach about construction. So with us today, we have 29 of my senior students. We are in a class that's called CM 450. It is their last semester on campus. We're hoping that it stays on campus for the full semester. And they'll be graduating in December. So this 450 class is a capstone class. They worked last semester on pre-construction, on projects, everything from land development neighborhoods to hockey arenas, a surgical suite, that kind of thing. And now we're in the construction phase of their project on paper. So we're using real stories out of the current news cycle to create a little havoc on their construction projects, plus a few that have happened to me over the years. So that's where we stand. We're only wrapping up week 2 of the semester, so we're happy to be here today to take part and have a little change of pace.
And we had the chance to sit down with Mark in our podcast and talk a little bit about how Purdue has reimagined their construction program. And one of the interesting things about it was that many times students would come out of the program with no real experience in construction. And one of the big changes that they made was that they started running their classes in more of an applied format, so that many of the lessons that they're learning are being incorporated into mock projects, and they're going on to real job sites to incorporate and get comfortable with what it really means to run construction. And I think that that's something that is phenomenal and a lot of folks could learn from. So we have a handful of industry professionals here, and there are a couple who have volunteered to be the brave folks to kind of field many of the questions. They haven't prepared for these questions. There's no preparation behind the scenes. We're going to be throwing these
Throwing them at everybody in real time.
Yeah. And we're going to grade them. We're going to keep score on how well they do.
No, not true.
Pressure.
No pressure. No
Not
pressure.
true.
So first, I want to introduce Jane Mounsey from Gly Construction. So Jane, would you just give us a short intro of who you are and what you do for Gly?
Thanks, Jason, and hello, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here with you today, and I'm very excited to meet all of you wonderful students and my peers here in the room. I am the Director of Human Resources here at Gly Construction. We are based in Seattle, in the Seattle area. I've been with the company over 12 years now. Absolutely love it. I think a couple of the things that sets Gly apart is that we are locally owned and operated. We do work strictly in the Puget Sound region. We are big for Seattle, but relatively small in the grand scheme of things, about roughly around 600 employees. And we are also a self-performing general contractor, commercial general contractor.
Appreciate that. Next, we have Tony Castillo from BN Builders. Tony, glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Big thanks to Mary and Jason for inviting me. Big fans of both of you. Yeah, so Tony Castillo, I and several of my colleagues help kind of manage our Seattle operation. Company born and bred in Seattle, just hit our 20-year anniversary, and we have offices in San Francisco, San Diego, and Newport Beach. Collectively about 700 employees, and our goal is to really be not too big, just kind of a sweet spot in every market where we can really take care of our clients and grow in a healthy fashion where people have real opportunity. So big fan of Gly as well. They do things really well. So privileged to be here.
Yeah. Likewise.
Simply nice.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. So next, I'm super excited to introduce Janisha from Hensel Phelps. So if anybody is familiar with Cabri, Lerman Schmidt, Janisha is the replacement for Cabri for this event. So it's someone who, Cabri told us that she couldn't be here. I said, if you're going to send somebody in your place, they need to go. And we had the chance to talk with JJ yesterday and feel like we're in perfect hands. So
yep. Cabri lived up to her reputation and sent us a rock star. So JJ, tell us a little bit about you.
Let's do it.
Hello, my name is JJ, as they stated. My real name is Janisha Johnson. I'm with Hensel Phelps, been with them for 17 years. Hensel Phelps is an employee-owned company. We're all over the United States. We have several districts. I won't name them all, but I am currently placed here in Southern California, where I've experienced my entire career. I have visited Hawaii and Arizona, but still stayed on the West Coast. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Got it. Thank you so much. Janessa, if you could take a moment and resend the invite to Denny Wilson. I appreciate that. He said that he's having a hard time getting in. I'm going to forward the email message to you. If you could take care of that for us. And
appreciate the help.
Yeah.
No problem.
And Elizabeth. So Elizabeth Reinhardt from Walsh. If you could give us a short introduction, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, hi everyone. Happy to be here. Elizabeth Reinhardt with Walsh Construction. We are probably the smallest of this group of contractors. We build just in Oregon and Washington, have been around about 60 years. We are different than the Walsh group that's out of Chicago, although they've been in the Northwest the last few years, and people get us confused a lot. But really excited to meet some folks from Purdue. I actually also grew up in Indiana, so just down the road in Terre Haute, and went to school in Mounsey. So I've been in Indiana about half my life and out here in Seattle about the other half. I'm the general manager for Walsh Construction of Washington. And we do about half of our work in Washington, half in Oregon, and have around 350 employees.
Got it. Thanks so much. So then we also have Denny joining us. So whenever he gets logged in, we'll get an intro from him.
Sounds like we're having audio issues in the live feed again. All right, so I will work on this and you can move forward. I'll see what I can do.
Got it sorted? Okay. So we'll go ahead and post that audio after. So first, we have we received 3 questions from 29 students. That's a lot of questions, and we don't have time to go through all of them, although all of them had tons of merit. You can see the students getting ready and kind of adjusting everything, because no one knows who we're going to call on, and no one knows what question it is that we're going to be pulling out of them. So hopefully everybody is ready and primed to go. So the first question comes from John Einigenberg.
Maybe John
Please
can
help
say his
me.
name. Yeah.
John, could you help me with the pronunciation of your name?
No problem. It's actually not that bad. So it's N again Berg.
Einigenberg.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks.
Okay, so you had a question having to do with choosing between a field leadership role and a project management role. So could you share that question for us?
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to my email real quick because I know it was kind of lengthy. So let me.
So in your own words, what's your question?
My field and
We're burning dollars here, John.
So I guess what advice would you give to someone who's because traditionally in a project engineer role, there's two routes you could take. You kind of wise off. You go the superintendent field route and the project manager, which is more office field hybrid. So to those answering, what is your advice for those who are thinking about whether they want to go superintendent or project manager role? Is there a skill set that fits better with one? You know, how does your background, whether it's education or blue collar, how does that fit in with that?
So I want to go to Janisha right off the bat. So do you have thoughts about what would help someone decide whether or not they want to go into the superintendent route or whether they want to go into the office management route?
Well, I can only speak based off my experience, of course. And based off my experience, I had the opportunity to come up in construction and experience both office and field. I started off as a field engineer, and then I transitioned into an office engineer, and I spent 5 years in the office, and I transitioned back into the field. My goal when I stepped foot out was to do office, believe it or not. I felt in my heart office would be a best fit for me. But as I got introduced to the field, my passion changed. So I would say if you get in a company, the first thing you probably should do is get a mentor to help you guide you through that decision. There's a lot of mentors, and a mentor doesn't necessarily has to be assigned. It's just who you want to follow that path with, and they can offer that advice. So that would be my answer to you is to, if you get the opportunity to do both, it's great, because then you'll know exactly what you want to do when you become a seasoned individual in construction. And I think that's a good answer.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
I tend to think of office managers versus field managers as kind of indoor cats or outdoor cats. When you take one and you put them in the other role, they're not necessarily going to be comfortable. So Jane, what did you have to say about this topic?
Yeah, I would say when you find the right company for you, one that encourages you to explore both or any paths, there's lots of alternative paths here at GLY. Everybody starts, who comes out of construction management or out of college typically starts as a project engineer. And some folks really love the technical aspect of the field. As a self-performing general contractor, our project engineers are immersed in the field. So there's really no office field in our psyche, I guess is the way that I would put it. And as you explore those interests, technical and field-based versus more project management, we don't call them office managers, but project managers who are really more client and money focused. So you will come to learn the differences between those two paths once you land at the right company that offers those kinds of opportunities to explore.
Appreciate that. So the next question, I want to go to Caitlin Young. So Caitlin, do we have you handy here somewhere?
Yeah, I'm here.
Caitlin, good to meet you. So Caitlin, if you would be so kind as to share your question about the business development path. And that one was really interesting.
So aside from like a project management role, What does a role look like in a construction firm for business development, such as a client liaison or marketing strategies, or be able to develop new innovation, something more that route?
So Tony, do you think we could get you to weigh in on that? I know that you're big into business development over there.
Yeah, no, Caitlin, great question. And I would say, it takes a little time, but one of the most impactful things you can do coming up as an engineer and a PM to kind of pull yourself into that role is to deliver a great project. Is to focus on taking care of your client. If it's a hotel or an office building, when you deliver that project for that client, I really truly believe that that's a form of business development. You're building a relationship with that client, and you're planting seeds so that 5 years from now, you're going to cross paths with that client, Caitlin. They're going to remember you. They're going to be like, Caitlin was that engineer, that project manager that was always there, that answered all of my questions, and I trust her. So it's not necessarily that you have to gun or try to get yourself to the business development role. You're naturally doing that, I believe, by doing your job well. I would also say I'm a huge proponent of, and like a lot of us on this call, of being true partners with our subs. They are a great source of leads and partnerships and recommending you. Jason and Mary too. I think it's really about not just focusing on that end client, but your network and your partnerships. So I don't know if that sort of answers part of the question, but sometimes there's this question of how do I get there? And I think it really is start with what you're doing day one and do it well.
Okay. So you'd say like networking has to play a role in that, but just keep doing what you're doing and you'll eventually.
Yeah, do what you're doing. And I think naturally, hey, you're doing a project, so you're touching the design team, you're touching the client, you're touching subcontractors, you're touching the vendors that the client's bringing in. On one project, you could have a network of 20 people just on that one project, and that's impactful. So yeah, I'd like to leave you with that.
So a motto that I used in my career is anybody that I'm working for, whether it's a client or whether it's a direct boss, I try to make their life as easy as humanly possible. And when you make their life as easy as humanly possible, then you will be demanded on the next project in any capacity. That's subcontractor, that is a project engineer, project lead.
Well, and I think it's a good question because that is something we hear a lot, is that people who have project managers and the project managers want to know how to be a rock star project manager, and thinking about business development is really that missing piece. That I feel like when we meet project managers who are really thinking about business development and thinking about client relationships, those are the rock stars.
I want to go to Elizabeth. Do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I would just totally agree with what Tony said, that those relationships that you build with the team on a project are very intense. I mean, you're working together toward this common goal. Everybody's working hard, and it's difficult not to come out of that with some strong relationships. And so when you see someone a year later, 10 years later that you worked on a project with, it's an immediate connection, and it's a very easy thing to, as long as you try to maintain those relationships, then that is by far the best way to have a really authentic way of understanding construction and developing meaningful relationships, which I think are much stronger than those, networking events. I want to add too, though, that in Seattle, like in many other cities, there are some great opportunities for construction industry events. I know ABC does a ton. Jason and Mary, you guys do a great job of collecting people from different companies that may not otherwise interact.
All the time.
National Association of Women in Construction crew. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. And so I would encourage everybody to seek those out once you get rooted in a place.
Well, and so that is a great lead into the next question.
Good segue, yeah.
You didn't get the list in advance, Elizabeth, right? I don't know.
No cheating.
Okay, so the next question is from Lily Whited. Is that the correct pronunciation, Lily?
Yep, that's the correct pronunciation.
Yeah. And so do you remember we asked you on a scale of 1 to 5, what's your interest in working on the West Coast? Do you remember what that one was?
I said 4, I believe.
Okay. That's not the question. Just keeping you on your toes. So you asked a question about women in the industry and their ability to connect with others. So
I'm
what's your
excited
question?
to hear our answers for this one.
Yeah, I really want to know maybe differences in companies as well. What kind of program you have for women in your in your company to collect and collaborate together?
So let's go ahead and see by a show of yes, no, who wants to tackle that one? Elizabeth? Okay, go for it, Elizabeth.
Yeah, sorry, I just spoke. But, you know, at Walsh, I feel lucky. I've been here about 16 years, and I would say we had a real push maybe about 15 years ago to say, you know, a lot of our clients are women, a lot of our architects are women. We really want to diversify the folks at Walsh. And so we had a big push kind of before me, which I was a benefactor of. To get a lot of really strong, talented women in project engineer positions who have made their way through the ranks to superintendents or project managers. And I think that it's been somewhat natural. I think that in general, both at Walsh, I've seen really strong relationships and mentoring relationships happen. We used to have breakfast once a month before the pandemic. We would have all the women at Walsh project managers. There's about 7 of us that would get together every month for breakfast and just kind of life stuff, work stuff, project stuff.
Formal or was that formal?
All the women were invited. It was, I don't know if it was formal or informal. Everyone was invited that was here. But I think that also extends to the greater Seattle construction industry. I mean, some of the greatest people that I have met and look up to as mentors and check in with are at different companies. And those relationships have been established either through CREW, which is Commercial Real Estate Women. NIWIC is a great local chapter, National Association of Women in Construction. So I do think there's a real interest in most women in construction that I meet to help each other out. I don't see a lot of cutthroat or competition. It is really welcoming.
I want to go to JJ next. So JJ, what does Hensel Phelps do for an opportunity to collaborate and connect?
Well, we actually have.
Uh-oh, we lost JJ. Oh, you're back.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
We actually have quite a few networks in our company. So we have something that's called a WNet, which is where we have a conference every 16 to 19 months. This brings all the females together throughout the company since we're spread out so far. Another thing that we
Oh no. We're losing
I'm
you.
so sorry, guys. Another thing that we do here in Southern California is we have a WNet here for our district, and we meet in the summer. We call it a summer splash because we like to include our interns, so our interns can also get to know the females that's here in these districts as well. We do participate in the National Women's in Construction as well, but we get together at LAX. We have a large group that works out there because we're on multiple projects at LAX. So we also do something that's local for the women. So we meet quite often just to make sure we keep the network of our females together.
Got it. Appreciate that. And we're seeing a lot more of that in the industry, which is fantastic. I know when I started in 2006, it was just all white men. And Lee Scritcher Lewis did a pretty good job at that point of having a pretty good, diverse crowd.
Some different faces.
I want to go to Travis Lilly. Travis, are you all ready to go here? Where are you at, sir? Do we have Travis here today?
I see Travis.
Do you?
He just sent a message. He can't get his audio to work.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and read Travis's question for him.
Yeah, and if you get it working, feel free to pipe in at any point you want, Travis.
So he says that he's interested in following a safety pathway. So he's interested in the safety role. This is something I wasn't even thinking of in school. He's interested in a safety pathway, but he wants to start on the PM office track. So he's just looking for advice in terms of how would you go about pursuing a safety career? Is there wisdom in starting off in the field track or PE track? and moving into safety, or is it important to kind of put it out there that that is your number one goal right out of the gate? What do we think? Who wants to take that one?
I can take this one on. Thank you, Travis, for the question. That was really great. I would say that regardless of what role you start in, if you were to come to a company like GLY, safety is part of every single person's job, 100%. The project engineers, the field people, all of us have safety as part of our job description. Now, if there was an interest in moving into the safety, onto the safety team, we do have safety engineers, folks that have a degree in either safety and health or construction management, and start out as site safety specialists, and then can move into a safety engineer role, and then potentially even, you know, could someday become a safety manager or a safety director. So it's a very viable path here, and definitely would say it's integrated into all things GLY. And so our safety team of about a dozen folks are everywhere on all of our jobs. It's a great career path.
So at GLY, who has the authority to stop work if there's a safety concern?
Everybody.
Everybody. And if you find yourself working at a company where everybody doesn't have the authority to stop work when there's a safety concern, then you're at the wrong company.
I love this because we'll ask that in training sessions whenever we have a big group of construction people, and we'll ask that question: who on the job has the right to stop work? And the Jane in the room, whoever it is who's kind of watching that group, they're always like, I hope you guys get this one right.
You really need to know it.
And then somebody says everybody, and everybody's like, whew.
We got it.
We got it.
Okay.
It's a really important one.
Perfect.
Mark.
Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that. We at Purdue, we have the students get a 10-hour card and a 30-hour card before they graduate. From the industry people in the room, is that something we should continue to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Denisha, did you have something?
I do. I want to say that's actually one of the requirements for some of our jobs out here. Definitely at the airport. If you're in the field, field can be office on a job site, or actually out walking a job site. You're required at a minimum to have a 10-hour. In some cases, it's required a 30. By me being a project superintendent, I'm required to have a 30, but my field engineers are only required to have a 10. So that's a plus when they're walking out onto the job site on day one. So I would definitely highly keep encouraging that.
Yeah, well, that is a fantastic opportunity. I wish I would have had that coming into the industry. So then we have Denny here.
Yeah, I think Denny finally got in.
Denny, are you here with us?
Oh, Mark, I don't know if Mark still has his hand up, or is that another hand
No,
up?
Mark still has his hand up.
Okay, no, he's good.
Denny, are you here with us?
Yeah, I finally got in. Can you hear me?
Yes, awesome. Sorry you had so much trouble, Denny.
That's okay. My apologies.
So we're just looking for a short 30-second intro of who you are and what you do for Bailey.
Yeah, so my name is Denny Wilson. I am a superintendent for Gly Construction. I've been with them for going on 15 years now. I started out with one other contractor, so proud to say I've only worked for 2 contractors in going on 29 years here. Great place to be. I was able to listen to the conversation before I got in, and a lot of good things that I have to share moving forward here. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good, good. So the next question comes.
So do you want to, is there anything specifically you want to address that we just talked about, or are you ready to move forward with the next question?
The first question was field versus office, right? Project manager versus superintendent.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I would say to that is they really should be running on parallels, right? There's an office side, there's a field side, but at the end of the day, those 2 positions better come together to be successful, right? I mean, it's not, the superintendent isn't running the job from the field, and that's what's happening, and the project manager is running the money. They both better have a very good understanding of what the other person is doing, or you're not going to be very successful.
So whenever I start a project, my goal number one out of the gate is to break down the wall between the office and the field. And sometimes
Absolutely.
it's a literal wall. Sometimes it's an actual wall that separates the two.
We literally worked for a company at one point that there was one guy in the middle.
There is one guy.
There is one guy in the middle, and if the field wants to talk to the office, they have to call this guy and leave a voicemail in a voicemail box that is always full.
Right.
No, that's never going to work very well.
Not a good look.
We want to go to Lucas Clifford. So he has a great question about respect, gaining respect.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Great. How are you, Lucas?
Doing pretty good. So my question is, how do you gain respect from the trades on the field side as an assistant and or a assistant superintendent who did not come up through the trades?
Yeah, so this is a great one. We see it a lot where folks will come through school and then maybe they do jump into a field management role, but they haven't actually done the things that we're managing. So who wants to give that one a go?
I can start this one. Hey, Lucas, first of all, thank you for just the humility in asking that question. I mean, we all want to be sort of accepted and appreciated. And sometimes the superintendents, when I was coming up, were intimidating, right? Coming up as a young PE, and things have changed, but I would say it's pretty classic, but just the hard work, like them seeing you, that you're there when they're there, that when they need a shop drawing or a submittal, you know exactly where it is. It gets to a point too, we were talking about business development with Caitlin, where that superintendent, but they're going to remember all the things you did for them when they could count on you, and they're going to be like, hey, on the next job, I want Lucas. I want Lucas on my job. That kid is amazing. Please make sure he's on the next job. He works hard. He's thorough. He's proactive. He asks questions if he doesn't know. And I would say one of the keys to any foreman or superintendent's heart is them seeing you walk the job and shadow them. You know, good superintendents are consistently walking the job and looking for potential safety problems or coordination issues. And if you're like, hey, can I walk with you? Could we have a reoccurring walk every day? That time where you two can just bond and go through questions. Them seeing that hunger, I think, is a sure, and I'm seeing Danny like nod his head there. I think it's just a sure way to earn respect. So thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the tricks that I used, I came in from residential to commercial as a PE project engineer, didn't know anything about commercial. And the tactic that I used was to identify a sub-trade foreman or a field foreman, superintendent, take them out for lunch, take one person out for lunch, for coffee, buy them lunch, coffee once per week, and just grill them, ask them 100 questions over that period of time and ask them everything that they've learned in their career. It shows that you have respect for their position and it shows that you have respect for their experience. Ask them for that wisdom and you'll get so much out of it.
It builds the relationship, but you learn a ton that way. So Danny,
That's exactly what I was going to say is, man, ask all the questions that you can possibly think of. If I don't hear you asking any questions, then I'm going to be wondering, you know, really, what are you doing? I want you to ask me everything, and I'm going to give you back as much as you're putting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next question I want to go to is from Sahej Chandhok. Is Sahej
can you
here?
correct us? Are we saying your name right?
Is that pronunciation?
Yeah, that's correct. My name
Uh-oh.
is
You're breaking up a little bit.
Breaking up a little bit.
You hear me?
Yeah, so the question that we're looking for from you has to do with a number of years of experience working in the construction industry and how it applies to a potential position. What was your question?
I'm sorry, you're cutting off a little bit.
I'm cutting off. Oh no.
Oh no.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask it for you, Sahej, and just let me know if
Sure, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's
That's totally okay.
So Sahej says that he's been applying to a lot of companies for entry-level positions, and he's noticed that on a lot of the requirements, it says you need 2 to 3 years experience of construction, right, in construction. So his question is, what are your thoughts about the importance of experience in construction when you're applying to an entry-level position? Is that correct, Sahej? Yeah. What do we?
Yeah.
How important is construction experience when you're kind of getting started in the industry?
I'll chime in. We have an extraordinarily robust internship program here at GLY. We're very proud of it. And so our interns are able to get a couple of years of experience and position themselves to jump right into those entry-level full-time project engineer positions. And you know, obviously you're at the end of your college career now. I guess the best advice, or the first thing that pops into my mind, is that if you're looking at companies that require 2 to 3 years of construction experience for an entry-level position, there might be something off about that company. And you might want to look for companies that are positioned to hire college graduates and have robust onboarding programs for fresh out of school young engineers.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing. Like a lot of companies, they in the description they're like, we're looking for fresh graduate students, but when you read the requirements, it's like you gotta have like 2 to 3 years of experience and college degree. I'm like, am I behind something or something like that? I was just like wanted to clear that.
Well, and I think there's a differentiation here that's important. So of course, you're not going to have 2 to 3 years of experience of being a project engineer for a project engineer role. It's circular, but it's perfectly possible that you could have 2 to 3 years experience working in the field, working with your hands, working in the trade. And my philosophy is, if you haven't had the experience of working in the rain, working in the snow, you shouldn't be managing people when you're asking them to do that. If you haven't had to work weekends or holidays, you shouldn't be managing people and ask that of them if you don't understand what you're asking. So experience can look a lot of different ways, I think, but most certainly pay attention to what it is that they're asking for specifically. Do you have any other thoughts on that question from our
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't let that discourage you from applying. I think Jane had a really good response there. I mean, we do have internship programs where by interning, inherently you're gaining experience. So hopefully you've been able to intern your sophomore, junior, those years.
Yeah, Mark tells us that they have to do 800 hours of internship experience in order to get their degree.
Right, so you've got that going for you, and I think to Jason's point too, we still want to meet you because you might have some other experience that you might not think applies that actually does.
Yeah,
sure.
That shows us leadership traits, being proactive. Hey, you've done some really hard labor in a previous life. Like, we still want to meet you and understand that. So I just don't let that discourage you or prevent you from applying.
Yeah.
Kind of my takeaway.
100%. So this is a really open-ended question, but I feel like everybody here would have something to say about it. So I want to go to Taylor Jones. Where's Taylor at? Here we go. Let's do it, Taylor. No pressure.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute it. Which question were you referring to?
So your question is about your relationship between yourself and your supervisor.
Yeah, so basically I just wanted to ask people already working in industry, having had the start of their career, that's something that's been difficult for me, is basically figuring out what's expected of me as a new hire, because I think we don't talk a ton about like what companies, we talk about being proactive, but I feel like we also need to talk about what that actually means, like on a job site. Because I've just been met with other, a lot of people, but basically just tips for managing expectations between yourself as a new hire and your first real direct supervisor, how to manage expectations, how to measure your success to make sure that you're doing what they think they're paying you to do. So.
Yeah, this is a great one. We're going to hand it over to our experts in a second here, but because this is a lot of what Arcade does, our company, Arcade, is that we help with this sort of thing. So we wanted to get our answer in here too. So during the job interview process, it is not inappropriate to ask for a job description. And a job description and a job posting are not the same thing. So a job posting, that's kind of that advertisement piece trying to get you in the door and telling you what skills do you need to have to excel at this job. A job description says, these are all the things you will need to do in the day-to-day at this job. So you can ask for that very early in the process, and it actually makes you look good if you do. It makes you look like you care what you're going to need to do. And then once you get the job, a really great thing to do is to go to your supervisor and say, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee? Can you give me a half an hour or an hour? Can we sit down and go through this job description? And that doesn't mean just skim it. It means line by line, go through and say, this line, this is what I think this means. Is this what this means to you? How about this one? This is what I know about it. Is this what this means to you? And if you do that, you're going to be in so much better place to have those conversations as time goes by.
So Elizabeth, do you want to weigh in here? How do you manage expectations with your supervisor if you're a new hire?
Yeah, I think, you know, the typical entry-level position is project engineer here, like a lot of places. And I think that position is challenging because it can mean a whole lot of different things. And I think there's not always a very clear hierarchy of reporting. You're often supporting a superintendent, maybe an assistant superintendent, a project manager, maybe two, maybe a senior PE. And so it does become something, especially in that PE role, where the more you can define that role within the team, I think the better the relationship everybody has, knowing that you're probably going to be reporting to more than one person, and it can be somewhat messy. So one thing we do at Walsh is each team, when we start a project, they go through a big matrix of here's all the tasks on the job. And then we identify who the primary person is that's in charge of that task and who a support person or a supervising for that task is. And that seems to help everybody's expectations and well, as a superintendent over here, I always do this, but on another job, maybe the project manager did that task. And so it just gets everybody on the same page. And I think some sort of tool like that where you can really just identify exactly what tasks each person on the team are doing. So I would encourage you, if it's not obvious, to try to go to your manager, just as Mary said, and either work out, you know, what exactly are my roles, or even better, what are the roles of everybody on the team?
And to tag on to that, when you're going through the interview process, make sure you demand to talk with the person who you will be reporting to.
Because the person who hires you is not always the person who you will report to.
You need to make sure you have good synergy with them.
And it's good to get to meet the team if you can. If they know they're going to put you on a project and you can have a chance to go and meet those people, that's a great way to kind of put your right foot forward and have start those conversations.
Yeah.
So here at Bailey, when you're a new hire, we're going to take you for the first multiple weeks and put you with a person that is doing the same job as you, and you're going to shadow them and learn. You know, all of us here build, but we have different ways of reporting and different, you know, we just do things a little bit differently. But you're going to spend some time with a person that's been here for a while, understands how we do things. That is the time to ask a million questions to that person. But at the start of every job, like somebody else, and I can't remember who said it, some superintendent on this job is not going to do it the same way that the superintendent does it on this job. So at the start of every single job, you're going to sit down and we are going to define what the roles are, who's doing it, who's reporting to who, and who's taking care of what task. So if you do those simple things, it really shouldn't be that difficult for you to just ask a lot of questions at the end of the day. Ask a lot of questions.
That's perfect. I want to go to Al Steffen. So Al, where are you at? Are you here with us today?
Here this morning. Thanks for having us.
Hi, good to meet you. So Al, you had a question about safety culture. Could you go ahead and share that question?
Sure. I mean, I think you'd be in the minority if you were a GC and didn't think safety was important. So obviously everybody stresses the importance of their own safety culture as part of their advertising their company. But what would you say that makes a great safety program stand out from other GCs, and what would make you the exception?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. So essentially it is, if we're saying that everybody has a passable safety program, what is a standout difference that makes a safety program exemplary? JJ, do you have anything you want to weigh in on that? What do you think, JJ? Not you?
No, I mean, I have to admit, I've only spent my 17 years with Hensel Phelps. So I can't honestly tell you what other companies are doing for safety. But the one thing that I admire about Hensel Phelps, as we've all stated on this panel already, is that safety just doesn't lie in one individual hands. It lies in all of our hands. And what that does and require of all of us is for all of us to understand the safety limits and the safety requirements. So educating us, and that's one of the things we promote here, is that we train within. So we do a lot of training on safety. One of the things we do when someone steps foot on a job site, whether you've had experience with us or not, we immediately put you in an identified hat, which is a red hard hat, and you live in that hat for 6 months. It's not to humiliate you, but it's for us to look out for you while you're out on the job site, just to make sure that we see that red hard hat, and we should pay extra caution, attention to make sure that you're on the same page with the safety of the job site and going on out there, because there is a lot in safety. On top of pushing work, you got to also make sure you're pushing it in a safe manner. So I think from my point, that's where it stands out.
Yeah, the red hard hats, those are fantastic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I would just buy my own if I wasn't provided with one of those. Absolutely. Denny, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, to me, what would make a safety culture stand out is not one where it's just the rule, but it's one that everybody has bought into.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a buy-in from the entire company, right? It becomes a culture. It's not just a list of rules that you have to follow. It's a culture, and if you can get that out of your people, to me, that's a standout safety program.
And I think that the big requirement there is empowering everyone to be able to call a flag.
Absolutely.
Stop the play, stop the work for a minute, redouble our efforts. Are we on the right track? Yes. Let's go ahead and go forward. And I think the
first thing I tell every new hire on the day when they come in and they go through our process is, you are empowered to stop anything. If you think that there is a life or death situation, you are empowered to stop that.
Even if it just
then come and get somebody, higher up in management to take it from there. But every individual is empowered on the project.
And I guarantee you, every graduate or future graduate we have in this room, you will face a situation where there's someone who's senior to you who will tell you that you're full of it and just go away. But it's really important that you stand your ground, not just for you, but for other people who are on the site, right?
Yep.
Until we actually double check the safety conditions, and then we're able to go forward.
The most dangerous thing on any construction project is a person who feels like they can't call a thing out that they see.
Yep.
Anytime that happens, that's when we see that, that's the worst thing that we ever see.
It is worth your job, for sure. So the next question is from Drew Hendricks. Where's Drew at? Drew, there you are.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Oh, Drew, yeah, you're good.
Good to meet you. So your question had to do with career fairs in this world of COVID. I know that Jane is chomping at the bit to answer this one. I know you have something great, Jane. So Drew, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so September 25th, we have our first virtual career fair. What are some of your guys' tips or tricks to impress recruiters in this new virtual setting?
That's perfect. Jane, what do you think?
Oh, I would say do your homework. So understand which companies are going to be represented at the career fairs and do your research. Learn about them and then target the companies that appeal to you. Look at their culture, look at the type of work they do, find out everything you possibly can about them. And when you have an opportunity to talk to the recruiters, and in our case, it's just going to be typically alumni, engineers, and managers from your program. We don't have any Purdue alumni right now, but the point is that be curious and ask questions and target the companies where you think you could be a fit. And that will help you stand out immensely.
Love it.
Elizabeth, do you have any thoughts on that one? How do you stand out in a virtual career fair?
Yeah, I totally agree with Jane. Do your homework. Don't get the company information wrong. I think being authentic is the main thing. I mean, even if you don't know what you want to do, I think it's okay to say that. I think being enthusiastic goes a long way, and being willing to work hard goes a long way. Those two things are more important to most employers than, hey, I had 2 years of experience. Back to the other question. I think just showing that, you know, most of us are more than willing to put the time in to train people if we feel like you're the right fit, you have the right attitude and aptitude. And the technical training part, people can learn, but the, you know, the people skills, the being likable, the recognizing that customer service is a part of construction, and how you treat other people is the most important. And that extends also to any sort of interviews or interactions you have with employers.
Got it. So another leg of that trip and answer to that question is make sure that your LinkedIn profile looks good, because that is usually one of the first places that we go to kind of see where you've been and what you've done. But I want to ask this question to Tony. So if you're trying to sell a job, right, you're basically interviewing for a project, how important is it that you emotionally connect with that potential client? Right? You're doing business development, you're trying to land this project, you're essentially in that job interview. What advice would you give related to this topic about connecting with the client?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And I think you're spot on. It's incredibly important in that context with the client to not just go into an interview, or if it's an interview with an employer, and just talk about the things you think they want to hear. Well, actually, no, the things that you think they might want to hear. Like, really take the time to understand them and listen. I mean, in the space of what Jason's saying about the client, I think they really want to hear that you understand them and that you understand what's important to them. You could sell all these other things. I know my colleagues, we know about this, the whiz-bang stuff, the salesy stuff, and that doesn't always stick, right? It's really, at the end of the day, building that trust and them feeling like you understand what's important to them. You know, same for you, Drew. I was going to say, it doesn't have to stop at the career fair. Like, when I attend these, I like to hand out my card, and I like to say, who's going to reach out to me? It doesn't have to stop at the career fair. Who's going to stay in touch with me for the next few weeks? I want to see that persistence. And sometimes there's interns that'll ask, hey, could I have a 15-minute chat with you to talk through, you know, strategies or things I could be doing right now? And I love that. And I know all my colleagues here love that. I was afforded that when I was coming up in the industry. Great people did that for me. And I know all of us would want to do that for you. So don't let the career fair be the one shot. Keep it going, get contact, stay in touch with the companies you're interested in.
I think that's great advice.
And many people go into interviews thinking that it's most important to be fully buttoned up, to speak 100% properly, use perfect grammar. But it's much more important that you connect emotionally, that you connect as a person, that if they see your dog run by, it's not the end of the world, right? It just humanizes you. And the more that you present as a human and a person, then you're much more likely to connect with those people.
And in that interest, actually, a piece of advice that I have given to a couple of people who are looking for jobs right now remotely is that we all have that kind of Zoom fatigue that goes on, and we all get tired of looking at the screens, and we all kind of look the same. It's like a face and a background, and hopefully it's a clean background. So something that I've been saying is, you know, your generation, you guys are good with technology, you're good with video, you're good with that
You're
stuff.
stereotyping.
I'm stereotyping, but everybody was able to find that yes button really quick. And
Really quick.
So if that's something you're comfortable with, I think it's a great idea to create like a 1 minute, minute and a half kind of reel with your phone of, here's the thing I built last summer, here's why I love construction, here's who I am, this is kind of my life, my space. And then you can play that during I don't know about during a career fair, I don't know exactly how that works, but during an interview, you can play that, and it can kind of make you stand out and give them a little piece of who you are, this thing that you made. And it can be a good way to differentiate yourself and make it a little more personal.
So last question, we're quickly running out of time.
Yeah, we made it all the way down.
Last question comes from Marie Hartzell. Where's Marie at? Marie, you're here.
I'm here. Sorry.
There you are.
All ready to go?
maybe, hopefully.
Your question had to do with what's the question that you would ask employers?
Oh, what is one question while you're hiring on or going through that hiring process that you would ask the company that you're hiring on to?
Yeah, and I think this could even be asked in a slightly different way. That is, what question would you have asked if you could go back and do it all over again? What's the right question that we need to make sure that we're asking prior to accepting any sort of position?
To help you figure out if the company is the right fit for you.
And I want to hear from everybody on
Everyone
this.
on this one. It's our last one, so
Only
let's
have
go all the way
a couple
around.
minutes. Who wants to go first? Danny?
I'll go quick.
Tony.
I would say ask them about their culture, ask them for examples, and then ask them to talk about their values. I think for a company to stick, it has to resonate with you. It's not about, hey, who pours the concrete the best? I mean, that's important, but I mean, we're going to be an extension of your family. So I would focus on culture and values, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I'd say, how does your culture manifest, right? How does your culture demonstrate that it exists? How do we know? Denny, you want to go next?
Yeah, everything that he just said is spot on, and I would add one more thing, and that is don't be scared to ask the question of what is your work-life balance? How do you treat that?
Yeah, what does that look like in a role like this?
What does that look like? Are you expecting me 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, or are you more of a family type company that you're going to know my name, not my job number, and understand that there are things that happen outside of work that are important, and are you going to give me some time to do those things?
JJ, what do you think? What do you got?
I would definitely agree with all of the answers that's been given this far. I would add, maybe that's a great time to ask what your expectations are of you stepping foot on day one. That's always good to be honest and upfront. And also you can give them your expectations because it's a two-way communication when you're hiring on with a company. So I think that's very important to understand.
Perfect. Elizabeth, what do you think?
Yeah, I always appreciate when people ask questions. It's a red flag to me when someone that you're interviewing, when you say, well, do you have any questions? And they say, nope. I always think, well, they're probably not that interested. So I think just asking a few questions and having a few ready is really important. I would not ask any question that you can get from their website. That just shows you haven't done your homework. But I think trying to figure out, how you can bring value to the company. So asking something along the lines of, what's a project that's coming up that you're trying to staff, or what is an issue that you guys are dealing with, and then trying to figure out, could you be part of that solution? Could you bring value to the company and show that in your answer? I feel like that goes a long way.
Okay, perfect. Jane, what do you think?
One of my favorite questions is, tell me about the key characteristics of people who are successful at GLY. So I would definitely recommend asking that. And it helps you really understand that alignment with values. It's easy to spout values and say respect, integrity, safety, all those things. But when you say, well, what are the key characteristics? How does that look like? How people show up?
Yeah,
I love it. Well, and something that Jason has done throughout his career is he'll ask the question, what do I have to do? What are the steps I have to take? And what do I have to learn to have your job?
I want your job.
And if that question gets regarded as somehow presumptuous or threatening, then that means that's not a good place for Jason to work.
Yeah.
And he's had really good results from that.
She knows that.
Because if it's the right kind of company, then there's going to always be room for you. It's never going to be a threat. If you say, what do I have to do to have your job? They're going to be excited that you are interested in learning as much as you can learn to rise as high as you can rise.
Yeah, perfect. So we're going to break out of here in just 1 second. And when we do that, I'm going to ask everybody to unmute if you can. So Taylor, we're watching you too. So we're going to get there in just 1 second. And Jared is going to get us out on that. But just a couple of announcements. So we have a safety roundtable coming up for ABC Thursday, September 10th, talking about the new Unified Fall Protection Code. We have an upcoming builder chat in 2 weeks. We're fine-tuning the topic here shortly. And then Thursday, September 24th, we have ABC Free Western Washington Free Enterprise Alliance fundraiser. So Jared, where are you at here, sir?
Right here.
Jared, perfect. So if we could get everybody to unmute, if you have the ability to unmute, Jared is going to walk us through our breakout. Ready to go?
Yeah, and just before that, just a couple quick words. Thanks for everyone for coming and our speakers for being on the panel. For those of you that don't know, ABC, Associated Builders and Contractors of Western Washington. We are a construction trade association here in the area. We have over 340 members spanning across Western Washington. And we're really just here to make their jobs easier, provide resources for them and their employees, and ways for them to grow. So thanks everyone for being here. And the way we like to break these off is with like a football huddle style. So we'll all put our hands up and I'll say ready, break, and then we'll all clap on the break. So if everyone can just get their hands up.
Ready?
All right, ready, break.
All right.
It's good to see everybody.
Thank you so
care.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck to you all.